that can be crazy, loud, overwhelming, and often painful. Our church, this group, wants you to know that we are glad that you are here, right now. This is what we've all been waiting for. Get ready, because we start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Whoa. Welcome in to another week of STYGIES Live. I'm your host, Ben Hansen, and I'm here live in the youth room. It's a great week. I'm glad you're here. It's another week closer to things getting back to normal, and we had a very, very interesting week. A lot of things happening on the STYGIE front, namely the start of the STYGIES Against Boredom Challenge. Yes, our quarantine games are active. They're live. This is week 1, and I will show you the leaderboard for week 1 and introduce next week's challenges at the end of this video. So stick around for that. But in the meantime, I'm glad you're here. And I've kind of been thinking a lot this week just about how weird all this time is. But one thing I cannot just get out of my mind is back in November, we had a Devo in this room, right here in this room. And over on the prayer wall, I had you write on a sticky note which one of the fruits of the Spirit you wanted to grow in the most over the next year. And by far, the most written one, all the fruits of the Spirit, was patience. Well, this is exactly how you learn patience. You get put in a situation where, well, patience is the only option. And by the end of all this, we will be much more patient people because, well, we've had to live it at this point.
Come on, you be faster.
Patience is a virtue.
Not right now, it isn't.
Which kind of reminds me of this guy. His name was Ernest Shackleton. He was an explorer. Lives in the early 1900s, so a few years ago, you know what I'm saying. He spent his time mainly exploring the ice caps in boats. So back then they had these big wooden boats, you think like Pirates of the Caribbean, those type boats, giant masts, all that stuff. You get a big crew, you go out sailing. Well, no one had ever sailed across Antarctica before. And so he said, all right, we're going to wait for the summer months. We're just going to make a beeline straight across Antarctica, go all the way across. We'll be the first people to do it. We'll be famous. We'll be rich, all that stuff. So Shackleton was a bold man, and he tried to sail across Antarctica between the glaciers, but they had a little problem because Antarctica is full of ice, right? You know what I'm saying? So as they set for sail in November of 1914, they're quickly making their way all the way across Antarctica. We're actually 200 miles away from getting all the way through, but the boat got trapped on ice on February 21st, 1950. The glaciers around them refroze, so that their boat was entirely surrounded everywhere they looked by just ice. Now, you know how many people live in Antarctica? 0. There's literally no one that lives in Antarctica. Why? Because it's ice, man. Like, what are you going to do on ice? Like, no one lives there, right? So him and his crew of 27 men were trapped on the ice starting in February 21st, 1915, with no way to get home. There was no way to dig through the ice. It was too big, it was too thick. They couldn't go forward, they couldn't go backwards, they couldn't go sideways. They were just trapped. And their boat slowly was getting crushed by the ice that grew, was being pushed by the water all around them. So the men actually ended up living, though. All 27 of them made it back home alive and safe. But they actually spent the next 497 days living on ice, on Antarctica, on ice. Like, what is this? Shackleton and all 27 men survived that time. So eventually they were able to get a small rowboat that Shackleton and a few men took. They went to this other island. They actually got a bigger ship there and came back, got the rest of their crew. And finally, the trip lasted over 3 years, but everyone finally made it safely home on January 10th, 1917. 3 years they were stuck in Antarctica and finally were able to make it back home. But they learned to live good lives during that time. Strange enough, because Shackleton actually was a man of faith, and his faith is one of the things that kept him sane during this time. Every single day, often several times a day, he would write in his journal, all right, here's what the ice looks like. Here's the pace that we've been traveling at as we walk along the ice. Here's what the weather is like. But also, sometimes it would just be, here's the morale of my crew. Today was the lowest day we've had so far. Or it would be, God, please help us. Please save us. Somehow we're all going to die. I mean, like, the things that he wrote in his journal were some of the things that were kept that kind of help us to know what the story was. But that was what kept Shackleton sane at this time, was just his prayers that he had, and knowing that he had family back home that he wanted to get to, but also knowing that the God that he knew in England was the same God that was there with him in Antarctica, because this is God's world.
As Shackleton surveyed the damage, he appeared astonishingly calm. His determined optimism defied the impending sense of doom.
To the outside, he presented the appearance of complete self-control, indifference, almost casualness. And this was very calculated because at every turn, his great trouble, his enemy, was not the ice, but it was his own people, in the sense it was their morale. That was the foe. He had to prevent their morale from crumbling.
And it has become one of the weirdest things for people to study now. They think, how did he get this leadership? How did he learn to stay calm even though the sound of their boat was like fireworks being shot off in the distance? How did he find a way to become grounded as he's living on ice? And it was very clear. Read his journal. It was his faith. His faith is what kept him sane. And because he was sane, he was able to lead others to also be calm and find peace in God and God alone. That no matter what was going on, no matter how thin the ice was they were floating on, they could be grounded in God's presence just by reaching out to him. He was always there. And I think we can learn a lot from this story because, well, in a lot of ways I feel like we're currently sitting on a piece of ice we don't want to be on as we just float, right? We're just kind of being guided wherever the wind may take us because all of our plans that we had are just completely gone, completely forgotten, not even realistic at this point. But we can definitely still be grounded. Because when we find a place to become grounded in God, when we learn to be patient in his presence and see the ways that God is working among us and in us, well, we can find home anywhere. This is one of the things that kept Shackleton sane and fit to lead his crew during this time was his faith and his prayer and his journaling. Every single day he kept those notes, that information, kept those prayers. And it was just a practice of being patient. Whatever circumstances you have that are given to you, you just live in them. Because that's honestly all we can do at the end of the day. It's a really cool story about how they eventually made it out. And during this time, as they were just bored, sitting there on the ice, Shackleton actually made people eat dinner together. And after dinner, you couldn't just go to sleep. You had to hang out with the people there. Which, geez, I wish we could all have dinner and hang out together right now. But we can't. We can do other things like Zoom calls. And so he made them participate in crew-led plays on the ship before it sank, which I think is fantastic, and I so wish we could see that because I can't imagine a bunch of burly men who are just sea people. I know Disney kind of skews our view of this, but I don't think most people who set out to live on boats their entire lives know how to sing very well. So I would love to see those plays. I mean, he made these people participate in these plays. That's so great. They made up all these different games to play. They actually trained like they were going to be in the Olympics to keep their bodies fit and in shape. They had dogs with them, and they kept training the dogs just to keep the dogs' morale high. Like, he did all these things to make sure that everyone was fit and in good shape, and knowing that this is an impossible journey. We may not make it out. But that mindset was, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep trying. Today's a new day. I'm going to live with what I have today. And at the end of the day, we're going to make it through. we're going to make it through. And so even though they spent 3 years trapped on Antarctica, everyone made it home. Everyone made it there safe. And it's one of the coolest journeys ever, which was a total flop of a journey. Their ship went down in the middle of the sea, but it's such a cool story now because they all made it home. So I think really during this time, it just kind of reminds me of this little parable that someone told me one time. He said, "Hey, Ben, you know how you wrestle a gorilla?" I was like, "Oh, no, I actually have no idea how you wrestle a gorilla." And he said, "Well, you get in the ring and you wrestle until the gorilla doesn't want to wrestle anymore. And that's how you wrestle a gorilla." And I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, man. I mean, you think about it. A gorilla's way bigger than you, way stronger than you. You're not going to beat a gorilla in a wrestling match. Really, the only thing you can do is just get in the ring, do what you can to make it through the day, and then eventually you'll be victorious whenever the gorilla, gets bored or gets tired." And honestly, I feel like that's pretty true for a lot of the things we have going on right now. The ways that we're learning to be patient with ourselves, learning to give ourselves grace. We've had some good days, we had some bad days. We've had some good mornings and then bad afternoons and then good nights. Like we have to learn to give ourselves grace, even if we don't feel like we're performing at our best each and every day. Grace to get back up the next day, continue to do our best to live during this very strange, weird time, knowing that there is an end in our journey, and knowing that whenever this journey is over, we're going to be changed. The things that we do today matter because it changes who we are in the future. Much like Shackleton keeping his men fit, having them do these Bible studies together as they're on the ice, having them have these prayer times. He told people, if you're ever awake at night and you can't go to sleep, go on a moonlight walk and just pray. Because the moon's there to guide you and the sun's not going to be hurting you. So just go on a moonlight walk. Just go pray. All these things that they did to keep themselves fit and sane help them get home 3 years later. In the same way, as things are different all around us, these small, tiny details of things that we do every day. It's so important to read your Bible. We've always said that. It's so important to pray. We've always said that. It's so important to find these spiritual outlets that you can just kind of get to know God better and really experience His presence. Those are so important all the time, even more so right now, because I guarantee if you learn to plug into those outlets, God's going to bless you. Because here's the thing, God's already working during this time. And that's one of the things we looked at this week in one of our Bible studies, right? So we've been doing this YouVersion app Bible study. And one of the verses that we had this week was Galatians 6, 9, and 10. And it says this, "And let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up." Like we're going to finally get our harvest that we've been working for, just as long as you don't give up. So then, as we've been given this opportunity, just do good to everyone, especially to those who are of the household of faith, especially those who are church people. So we have to just keep doing good and keep doing good and keep doing good. And this was written by a guy, Paul, who experienced the worst of the worst, was thrown in jail where he couldn't go anywhere for years, was beaten, was bruised, traveled all these places he didn't want to go, but that's where God sent him, so that's where he went. He's been through the ringer, and he says this as encouragement. Just don't grow weary in doing good. For in due season, I promise you, the harvest is going to come. You've been working like dogs, okay? You've been working so hard. But don't give up because the harvest is coming. So do good to everyone. Just keep doing good. Just keep doing good. And I promise you, at the end, there's a great harvest for you. Learn to have endurance. Learn to have patience. Because patience does pay off. And another verse that was also that same day in the Bible study was Philippians 1, verse 10. But I'm going to read 9 and 11 as well. So Philippians 1, 9 to 11. "And it's my prayer that your love may grow just more and more with knowledge and all discernment." Just have so much wisdom, so that you may approve what is good and excellent and be pure and blameless on the day of Christ, filled with the fruit of righteousness that comes through Jesus Christ, to the glory and the praise of God. Just grow more and more and more and more. This is one of those times where you're not seeing other people all the time. You're not having to check in with people all the time and those kind of things. So it feels in a lot of ways like we're all just kind of stagnant. Like we're really not going anywhere because we're not leaving our house, right? And so you feel like, well, if I'm not leaving my house, I'm not getting out and doing things, then I'm not really growing. So I guess life's just put on pause. But the truth of the matter is that absolutely, this is a time to plant those seeds and let God grow you more and more and more and more and more so that your faith can abound and you can grow in wisdom, grow in understanding, grow in all of these things. There's so much right now that we can be doing to grow. There's so much to do right now to grow. And at the end of all of this, we'll finally get to reap that harvest that right now, if you put the work in to grow in your faith, you're going to grow in. Because the truth is, this is actually a time where God has been working a bunch, a whole lot. And I've got to see faith grow in this youth group in so many ways. And that's been so, so very cool. Those of us who have decided to step up and say, hey, I want to lead a Bible study. How can I help? Hey, I want to get this started. How can I help? Hey, I'm just going to participate. I'm just going to show up. And by showing up and just having my presence here in the group, that helps. Because that's true. Every time you decide to show up and be a part of something, whether it's youth group on Wednesday nights, whether it's this stuff on Sunday mornings, whether it's just reaching out, texting each other, seeing how things are going, seeing if you can get a game together, see if you can get a Netflix party movie going, or just something like that. Every time you reach out to someone and help them grow, it helps us all. So just know that now's the time to do good, to grow in doing good, because God's at work. Because the truth is, nationwide right now, there have been studies over the last few weeks that have shown that church participation is actually way up right now as to where it normally is. I think part of that's because life has just stopped for so many people. And so most of your excuses are out the window, right? Oh, I'm too busy. Oh, I have work. Oh, I have this. Oh, I have the energy. No, none of those things are true right now. And when the rest of life gets taken away, our nation's kind of asking questions about, well, what about faith? What about church? And so a lot of people are coming back to church that have fallen away, but another group of people are coming to church for the very first time. You know, just at Shawnee Trail, during this quarantine time, we've had a family place membership. But not only that, we have 2 people from our community that have found our online service, have watched it and said, I've never been to church before, but I like this, so whenever things do get up and running again, we want to come visit. That's so cool. That is so cool. And it's not really a matter of us putting together the most beautiful, elegant, exciting online service in the world. We're just going about doing our daily business, doing what God has for us to do each and every day. And in that, God's seeing that and God's blessing that. It's like in 1 Corinthians 3. Paul says, I plant the seed, but God gives the growth. God always gives the growth. And during this time, this is actually a time of spiritual revival in a lot of ways across the entire country. People are slowing down, they're stopping to come back to their faith and say, okay, I think I've been a little distracted. But this time, what can I get focused on? Because the truth is, Satan doesn't need to destroy you to win. Satan just needs to make sure you're distracted. And I feel like for a lot of us, 2 months ago, we were very distracted. We were so distracted by everything around us. And so Satan was winning. He was killing us. He was destroying us. But he doesn't need to just overpower us in order to win. He just needs to make sure we're distracted. So now can be a time where you can sit down, slow down, and focus on the ways that God is at work all around you. And focus on ways to join God in that work as well. Pray for eyes to see the way that God is working, but also pray for strength for God to join him in that work as well. Because whether you feel it or not, God's moving. Whether you slow down to see God moving or not, he's still working. And even if the good things that have come from this are not as good in your eyes as what normally is there, even if you aren't as excited about what God's doing now during this time as you would be, say, if things were normal, you still need to teach yourself how to be thankful. You still need to teach your heart how to be in the right posture to be thankful and worshipful during this time. Because God is doing miracles, even today. Even when we aren't allowed to get out and to see it for our own eyes. God's working. God's doing miracles in all of our lives. So it's our duty to see him in that work and to join him in that work as well. So that's my encouragement for you this week. Continue to do good. Keep growing in good. Know that every seed that you plant that seed and you water that seed. And just know that even if you don't feel it, even if you can't see it, even if it's underground buried and you think it's long gone, lost, and dead, God gives the growth. God gives the growth. That's a promise that he makes to us. When God makes a promise, he always, always comes through. And now it is time for your STYGIES Against Boredom Challenge leaderboard. Yes, it has been a fantastic week for the STYGIES Against Boredom Challenge. There have been over 60 people that have already participated in an event so far this week. Incredible, incredible. I love it. You love to see it, and I'm loving seeing it. I'm telling you, I love it. You love to see it. You love to see it. And I can't wait to see what this week brings as the challenges get a little bit more crazy and probably a little bit more fun. So, our leaderboard goes as follows. In 20th place, well, Kinsley, Ainsley, and Lucy. You guys don't even have a name yet. Just disappointed. I don't know. Senioritis. We'll just chalk up senioritis. In 19th place, the Welsh Squad. In 18th place, Krusty Peach Smoothies. In 17th, the Crew. 16th place, the Golden Girls. 15th place, Ava, Rothenberg, Braylon, and Anna. You guys don't have a name either. In 14th place, Shaden, Colton, Quincy. Ugh. Okay, there's 3 teams that don't have a name yet. Come on, get a team name. 13th place, Chicken Leg Piece. 12th place, the Jaywalkers. 11th place, Bubba Shrimp. 10th place, Free Points No Scam. 9th place, MRP. 8th place, the Disciples. 7th place, the Dogs. In 6th, the Stig Crusaders. In 5th place, the Soggy Biscuits. In 4th place, the Stig Owls. In 3rd place, CIS. In 2nd place, MAM. And in 1st place, your leaders for the week in the STYGIES Against Boredom Challenge, MML. Holding it down. But here's the thing, guys. This race has started off with a bang. But right now, in the top 10, everyone in the top 10 is between 23 and 21 points. That's right. The top 10 are separated by literally 3 points. So, any person in the top 10 could actually take the lead today by completing all the bonus challenges for the week. And remember, this week's challenges are due tonight, this Sunday, at 8 p.m. Text them to me. Text your videos, text your pictures, whatever it is. New challenges for week 2 go up tonight on the website under the youth tab. And if you'd like to know who's on what team and what team names mean what and who's on these teams, go check the website. It's all there. And here are just a few of the best submissions that we had so far this week. You know, just like the rest of your life, even if you can't do it, you get bonus points for trying, okay? You get bonus points for trying. That's how life works. So even if you can't juggle, you still get points for trying. Send me your videos of you juggling. Now, one thing I learned this week is that no one in this youth group can juggle, okay? I thought probably everyone could juggle, but instead, you guys just decided to act like clowns. You aren't clowns. That's right, I went there. I thought all you were clowns, but none of you can juggle, so you've just been acting like clowns. Come on, it's ridiculous.
Okay, Ben, here's a video of me juggling. Afro, Afro circus, Afro polka dot, Afro.
And now some of the best hazmat suits so far this week went above and beyond my expectations. Check out the paper bag mask. And this one included protecting our feline friends as well. But don't worry, dogs actually can't get coronavirus, so that's good. But anyway, it's good that your dog is protected. So, get your submissions in. They're due tonight at 8. And as I said, anyone in that top 10 could take the lead so easily. If even one person in your group decided, I'm going to do the challenges for this week, boom, you'd instantly be in first place. But right now, everyone's chasing MML. And you know what? That's going to be a race to the finish. So, next week for class, come back, and we're going to start a series in Daniel. It's going to be based on this book called Faith for Exiles by David Kinnaman. It's a great, great book. And I know that you're probably tired of hearing about quarantine, about what we can't do, and about yada, yada, yada. I don't want to ever hear the word coronavirus again in my life. So, next week, we're going to start a series that doesn't have to do with coronavirus. It just has to do with faith and normal life and how we live in a world that's increasingly just against the rules of Jesus, against the laws of Jesus. How we live our faith out in a way that is different from the world around us, right? Because we do live in a world that not everyone's a Christian. And so how do we learn to live as good Christians in this world? So that's what we'll start on next week. I can't wait for that. It's going to be such a fun series. So if you want to get this book, it's a good read. You might actually have nothing to do right now. Here's a good book to read. You can order it on Amazon. Amazon stock is up 8% the last week because they're still delivering stuff, and everyone's getting stuff delivered to them. So order it on Amazon or wherever you get books. It's there. Good stuff. So until next week, I miss you guys so much. I love you guys. But until then, continue to grow in doing good. Grow in your faith. God is working so hard at this time. See him working. Enjoy that. Live in that. Find joy in that. And just find peace.